What's up, YouTube? I'm Valentin the Mad, and this is a Gore review of Mafia 3. Welcome to what I call the autumn-winter of Gore. We have a whole bunch of new games coming out that I intend to discuss, such as Shadow Warrior 2, Dishonored 2, Dead Rising 4, and several others. This review of Mafia 3 initiates that. As for the game itself, it caught my attention early on with what seemed like great response animations, disabled states, and interesting blood spinning mechanics. Now when it's out, the main question is, does Mafia 3 deliver? Let's find out. I'll be reviewing every aspect of the game's core effects, and the score will be set based on 4 categories: body damage, environment, animations and sounds, the feel. So first of all, there is no dismemberment. You can shoot enemies using a shotgun from point blank in the face or the limbs, and nothing will come off. However, when a game has good non-dismembering damage, it can make up for the lack of dismemberment and still deliver solid response. Well, is that the case with Mafia 3? It's not. For the most part, the response will be a generic damage texture divided into several areas. Why for the most part? Because the red spot at the point of impact does work to a very limited degree. You'll see it on headshots along with the generic overlay, and if you shoot characters anywhere else, you'll notice that a red spot may or may not appear. As you can also see, for some reason you may have only one red spot at a time. The impression I'm getting is that the wound at the point of impact mechanic is there, but it's very bugged, so the developers resort to the one type of response that will consistently work, which is the generic damage texture. The result of resorting to the generic damage texture is that all the bodies end up looking the same. Instead of seeing gory wounds or blood-soaked areas at the points of impact, you'll see the exact same response every single time. Not very exciting, is it? In fact, the only thing worse than a generic texture is no response on the body at all. As for the executions, the response is the same thing you have for gunfire. The generic damage texture, with red spots working consistently on the head. You would think the response for explosives would be the generic overlay, right? Nope. When using explosives, there will be absolutely no body damage. As for the burning, the body damage is a darker character, and you see blood on the face. I think the blood is supposed to resemble burn wounds on the skin, but it fails, because burn wounds look nothing like that. As for the animations, you'll see the character freak out and then drop and roll around for a bit. At its core, it's a pretty good approach, but I think the animations should have been much longer. You have blood stains on impact, extra stains on the finishing shots, and blood pools for dead characters. The looks of the stains are not bad, though they are somewhat generic and I think they could be gorier. The blood pools are a different case though. As you can see, the texture is in a very low resolution, which simply looks bad. For the most part, the impact stains are proportional with the blood path effect. However, as you can see, they'll often spawn about a meter away from the character, which looks pretty odd. As I mentioned, you'll see extra stains spawned on the finishing shot, and I wanna discuss a few things about that mechanic. So first, as you can see, they'll be spawned in one single emission. A more detailed process would be much more interesting. Seeing stains spawn throughout the entire death animation below the character, and if the wounded area came in contact with the surface, such as a wall, seeing blood smeared on that wall as well. A very odd thing about this mechanic is the amount of stains spawned on headshots. I usually prefer seeing a game spawn more stains than it should, instead of not spawning enough of them, but this is ridiculous and it simply looks awful. It's also a good example of what I meant when I mentioned that the stains look somewhat generic. Should be mentioned the very frequent bug of bloodstains appearing on the exterior of the car when you shoot the character who is inside the car, and the instances when the respawn stains simply don't work. Now how's the mess in the long term? Impact stains disappear after 30 seconds. In missions, bodies and blood pools seem to stay until you finish the mission. However, if you go on a random killing spree, the mess will start vanishing when you go about 30 meters away. So as you can see, in missions an aftermath experience was taken into account, however, the impact stains should have stayed as well. If you put the headshot thing aside, the spilling delivers decent feedback, so the full aftermath could provide a very nice feel. Since it will take a toll on performance, the solution is, as always, to make that stuff configurable in the options menu. Anyone whose PC can handle the full aftermath should have an option to see it. You have response animations on impact, death animations followed by ragdoll physics, a disabled state, and executions. The executions are pretty cool. You'll be shooting enemies in the face, dropping them, and then shooting them in the face, stabbing them. But my favorite one is putting the gun in the mouth and pulling the trigger. A cool aspect of this feature is the nearby enemy's reaction. They'll get scared. However, this reaction has no depth to it. The behavior is not expanded further, and every single scared enemy will quickly recover from that and will keep fighting you. I've never seen an enemy say screw it, drop their gun, and run away after you stab their body in the face. The response animations can be divided into short, not particularly interesting ones, and fairly long ones. The long response animations are one of the things that got my attention in the early gameplay videos, and it's a very cool feature. However, those response animations highlight a certain, very common issue. After that animation, or after taking any damage, characters will keep fighting as though nothing happened. You can see the transition from the moment the character is in pain to being completely indifferent about it. A thing I've been suggesting repeatedly in this series is a wounded state of behavior in which the character can still fight you, but he'll be somewhat slowed down and will visibly be in pain. This feature can be seen in games such as Soldier of Fortune 2, Rainbow Six 3, and SWAT 4. But Mafia 3 has a disabled state feature. It's very similar to what we have in Verdun. You'll see the initial death animation, which can be followed by ragdoll physics or by a disabled state with the character lying in pain on the ground. The disabled state can last for a minute or two, which is much longer than what we have in most games, and if you want, you can choose to finish the poor bastard. The big issue is that this disabled state is activated by a chance rather than a damage threshold, and the chance of activation is very small. It's still better than what we have in most games, but this disabled state should be activated much more frequently. As for the death animations, they'll be based on the character's surroundings. For example, if he was shot in the open, he'll fall and roll around for a bit. If he was shot against the wall, he'll dramatically slide down. Or, if he was shot near a railing, you'll see him drop. The animations themselves are not affected by physics, which means it won't look quite as natural, and it can lead to rough transitions and some pretty amusing bugs. Another miss-out is that I've never seen a character go into a disabled state after being shot against the wall. A sitting, leaning on the wall disabled state could be awesome. But still, the death animations deliver solid feedback, and having special animations for different surroundings is a great call. The respawn sounds on impact are good. you hear a nice wet sound on knife executions, and even when you're shooting enemies, it will sound like you're hitting flesh. Not realistic, but very cool. The enemies will react to a hit, on death, and will comment during the fight. The reactions themselves vary from loud screams to subtle moans and even comments that they're bleeding badly. While there is room to make the reactions more brutal, they deliver very good feedback and you won't have many quiet moments during the fights. So how does the whole thing come together? Despite the issues, the animations department delivers an exceptional response. The sound aspect absolutely gets the job done. The spilling has some odd issues, but it could deliver a decent feel if you had an option for all of the blood to stay for as long as you can figure it. However, the absolute biggest issue with the gore system is the body damage. A generic damage texture can work as a basic response for a strategy game when you have hundreds of units on the screen at the same time. It can work for explosives when you have no dismemberment in the game. However, when it comes to gunfire or executions in a game like Mafia 3, it's an absolutely terrible response and ruins what could otherwise be a solid feel. So the score for body damage is 3 out of 30. The score for environment is 13 out of 30. The score for animations and sounds is 21 out of 30. I give the feel a score of 5 out of 10. So this gives the gore system of Mafia 3 a score of 42 out of 100. Mafia 3 is one of the games I was looking forward to the most, and seeing the generic damage texture was very disappointing, especially when you have a decent amount of attention put in every other aspect, along with several uncommon and exceptional mechanics. Gore aside, would I recommend it? I have to say that the gore was the main thing that got me to enjoy this game. The AI is pretty stupid. The cops are downright retarded.
Now, goddammit!
All units, report of a colored male brandishing a firearm and Irish. All units, pursuit is called off. Abandon search and return to patrols.
The weapon effects, visual and sound-wise, are not very good. I had some hope that the game would expand the physics feature introduced in Mafia 2 to deliver some interior destruction, but that also didn't happen. The vast majority of the missions in the game are go there, kill everyone, move on. I don't mind it, but when that's what you have, it's extremely important to make those firefights as fun as possible, and they are simply mediocre in this game. Hope you enjoyed watching the review. Let me know how you feel in the comment section, and if you liked the video, subscribe and share it around. You can find the link to all of my Gore reviews in the video description. Until next time.